The man we will talk about today was an enigmatic warrior whose life always remained on the margins, even until his bitter end. His military career spanned decades of loyal service, surviving and triumphing amidst wars and conflicts, until he became the Führer's favorite German general. His bold and unexpected tactics continue to astonish military scholars today. His victories in World War I and II earned him the highest honors, while generals and officers envied his success. He fought side by side with the Italians, in the Alps, in the scorching deserts of Africa, in the arid terrains of Greece, and on the battlefields of France. In a time marked by decay and the atrocities of war, General Erwin Rommel emerged as the most effective, albeit disobedient, commander. A nickname accompanied him, the Desert Fox. This title encapsulated his ability to move skillfully in hostile and solitary terrains, where he rose as a symbol of courage and cunning for the German people. Today we will learn about his extraordinary life. I'm Ronaldo Carrillo, and this is the New Encyclopedia, and I invite you to leave your comments, to share the material, to like it, and to support us on our Patreon, which you can find below this video. Johannes Erwin Eugen Rommel emerges into this world on November 15, 1891. In the Kingdom of Württemberg, a federated state in the south of Germany, which had been unified as a nation 20 years prior. As the third of 5 children, he grew up in the embrace of a military family, and his father led the local government council. In the idyllic town of Heidenheim, Rommel's childhood flourished in relative calm, but the call of arms resonated in his spirit. And at the early age of 18, he marched to the 124th Infantry Regiment as a second lieutenant. It was at the Danzig Cadet School where his essence shone, demonstrating a gift of command and extraordinary ability. In that crucible of learning, he met Lucy Maria Malling, a woman of Italian and Polish roots with whom he forged a deep love over the years. In the sacred bond of marriage, they sealed their union in the year 1916. From the academic halls of Danzig, where his mind blossomed like a bud, Erwin Rommel emerges as a lieutenant. The outbreak of the Great War in 1914 brought with it a change of course, and fate urged him to return to his old home in the 124th Regiment. During the whirlwind of World War I, Rommel rose to the rank of lieutenant, displaying his leadership in a symphony of improvised battle tactics on various fronts. On the battlefield, Rommel stood out as a fearless man. It was in the land of France where Rommel first showed his great skills. With unexpected mastery, he made his way through a rain of fire and took enemy detachments. His actions between September 1914 and January 1915 were recognized with the Iron Cross Second Class. He was then sent to the majestic mountains of the Alps, where he fought uphill battles in the fiery Battle of Monte Cosna. Then his path led him to the front of a mountainous and treacherous land in the heart of Italy, in the midst of the Battle of Caporetto in October of 1917. There, in command of his battalion of rifles and machine guns, in just 2 days, with his iron determination and his 150 men, he captured over 9,000 enemies. He took possession of 81 cannons, and only 6 men on his side fell in the heat of the attack, cleverly taking advantage of the mountainous terrain. Rommel moved like a ghost to flank the Italian forces, attacking from unexpected directions and overcoming contrary orders. It was in these fierce battles where Rommel implemented the infiltration tactics that made him legendary, to the point of capturing them in the pages of a book. In the 1930s, in the mountainous confines of the Alps, where the plow of World War I consumed the brave souls of Europe, Rommel bravely faced the Italians. However, the blue enamel of the Pour le Mérite, which was the highest German decoration, the essence of military recognition, did not rest on his chest, as it did on the necks of men of arms like Hermann Göring or Lieutenant Schörner. Furious and determined, Rommel unleashed a torrent of words and letters addressed to his superiors and at every command and headquarters to which he was assigned. He demanded that his worth be recognized with the highest honor, and in this unorthodox way. He got his coveted medal and thus joined the lineage of German war heroes. This singular achievement gave Rommel a stature that rose above his fellow officers. His valor was particularly elevated because Rommel, unlike many of his contemporaries, never went through the ranks of the German general staff. He was not a shadowy battle strategist, but eventually his path led him to rise to the supreme rank of Field Marshal, as we will see later, with the emerging baton hanging from his neck. He was promoted to captain in 1918 and was assigned an administrative post where he served without complaints until the end of the war, but the war ended. And also in a painful defeat and humiliation for Germany, which lost territories, its monarchy collapsed and the country was subject to usurers, international loans impossible to pay. Rommel was one of the chosen ones who remained in the military ranks after the humiliation of Versailles, which dismantled much of the German army. Rommel skillfully maintained his leadership despite the suspicious glances of his peers. While the discharged soldiers lamented in bars among the shadows of sedatives and anxieties about unemployment, the financial crisis, and government negligence, Rommel emerged as a beacon of stability. He had to contain the demonstrations of his former comrades in arms, confront the looters, and silence the communist agitators in the alleys. Rommel, a former skilled warrior, now preserved public order with exceptional calm and moderation, in the midst of a Germany that was becoming very violent and conflict-ridden within its doors. In his letters to his wife, he described that interwar period as a chaotic whirlwind, where everyone seemed to be fighting against everyone. Just like the conservatives and nationalists of his time, Rommel was able to recognize the betrayal of the German army at the end of the war, perpetrated by the subversive and socialist elements of Germany, which unleashed an internal revolution in 1918. However, Rommel kept himself out of partisan struggles, as his focus was on military work. His loyalty was only with the German army. In 1920, he was assigned to Stuttgart, where he established his home with his wife for the next 9 years. He then moved to the prestigious infantry school in Dresden, rising to the rank of major. There he immersed himself in writing books and teaching. It was in October of 1933 when he was transferred to Goslar, where fate had a crucial encounter in store for him. It was there that he crossed paths with the Führer, who had been elected Chancellor of Germany in 1933 and was leading a National Socialist revolution in his country. Rommel viewed his rise to power favorably, but just as he served the Weimar Republic, as we have said, his only political affiliation was with the German army. Something in Rommel must have caught Adolf's attention, as in 1936. The German Chancellor appointed him in charge of security arrangements. At the party rally in Nuremberg, a task that Rommel carried out exceptionally, for 1938, National Socialist Germany was taking over the Sudetenland, a region of majority ethnic Germans that had been awarded to Czechoslovakia after the First World War. During this operation, Adolf always kept Erwin Rommel by his side. When the Germans conquered Prague, Rommel shared a closeness with the Führer that most of the general staff officers had never experienced. By the 23rd of August 1939, Rommel was promoted to Major General and was tasked with protecting the Führer and his command post during the invasion of Poland on the 1st of September 1939. However, Rommel demanded action, so he asked Adolf for the command of a combat division. When asked what kind of division, Rommel replied, "A division, Panzer, the innate cream of mechanized warfare." The mutual respect and admiration between the two were so great that the German Chancellor agreed immediately. England and France had declared war on Germany, and the drums of war were sounding for all European soldiers. Already in the hurricane of combat, Rommel, like a furious storm, was crossing the battlefields, leaving behind the officers of the German General Staff. Who were trapped in the quicksand of doubt and indecision. Rommel rose to command who were trapped in the quicksand of doubt and indecision. Rommel rose to command the 7th Armored Division. He was carefully forging it for the imminent campaign against France. There, in the annals of armored warfare, he found his canvas to paint new tactics, weaving a web of bold strategies and employing armored mass with mastery. Rommel had had the opportunity to deeply educate himself, and this imbued him with an ocean of war and tactical knowledge. It was also claimed that Rommel possessed a mysterious, almost magical quality. He could defy danger from atop a steep railway hill in full view of the enemy artillery's fury. The bursts of machine guns hit the ground around him, while projectiles fell just yards away, even taking the life of his personal aide in the French campaign. But he remained unscathed, immovable, just like Adolf. He possessed an enchanted fortune that shielded him from the enemy's harm. Wrapped in an invisible armor, Rommel's figure rose like a beacon in the midst of the war storm, guiding his men towards sacrifice and glory. In the relentless French campaign, Rommel deployed his division at a dizzying speed to reach the Channel coasts and then embark on a sweeping march towards Cherbourg. But his audacity was not limited to feats on the battlefield. During the torrid summer that followed, the German army entrusted him with a particular task: the production of a propaganda film titled Victory in the West. Thus, under his direction, his troops reenacted the glorious campaign against France, captivating the cameras with the harsh winter. Between 1940 and 1941, Germany was forced to send a commander to North Africa to rescue the faltering Italian troops. Rommel received the call and was entrusted to lead a light infantry division into the scorching sands of North Africa. This in February of 1941. His troops infiltrated behind the Italian lines in Tripoli, just as the British advance, which stretched along the Mediterranean coast of North Africa, was approaching the city. If the British forces managed to break into Tripoli and expel the Italians from their colony, the repercussions would be catastrophic for Germany's ally. But despite the disadvantageous situation for the Germans and Italians, Rommel knew how to move with cunning and precision to ensure German supremacy in the North African arena, while the fate of the African continent hung in the balance. However, Winston Churchill, unaware of Rommel's relentless advance in North Africa, hesitated. He ordered vital components of the British forces to be directed to a desperate campaign in Greece, unsuspecting of the disastrous consequences this would bring. In this way, Churchill gave Rommel a precious margin of time to consolidate his position. The instructions received by Rommel from the Italian High Command in Berlin were clear and decisive. Under no circumstances was he to launch an offensive against the British. His task was limited to building a defensive line at specific points. But Rommel, defiant and impetuous, ignored the orders of his superiors and crossed Cyrenaica. Surrounding and isolating 30 or 40,000 British soldiers while capturing 3 British generals in a week, it was one of his most glorious and daring feats. Within weeks, he had almost reached the Egyptian borders. His name emerged as the Desert Fox. Erwin Rommel's fervor and determination restored the Italians' wounded pride and made it clear to Adolf that with one last effort, the Axis could take over all of Egypt, cross the Suez Canal, and merge with a planned German offensive against Russia. Thus, on June 22, 1942, Erwin Rommel was honored with the rank of Marshal. For the Führer, Rommel had opened new horizons and had become his favorite. However, the lack of supplies, Italian incompetence, and General Montgomery's fortune led the British Army to gain ground over the Axis in the African theater. Despite this, Rommel's retreat was an astonishing military feat. Despite having the entire Montgomery's 8th Army, and hot on his heels, he managed to rescue between 200 and 300,000 German Italian soldiers, taking them across the inhospitable coasts of North Africa to Tunisia, where he organized a successful evacuation. When General Rommel fell ill, upon his arrival in Tunisia, when the defeat of the German forces seemed imminent, the Führer ordered his evacuation to the mainland, but no one told him. The public was left with the belief that Rommel was still fighting in the trench, bravely resisting. His name continued to echo on the battlefield, even though the general himself had been taken to a safe place. In the turbulent year of 1943, Rommel was transferred to Greece to counter an imminent British invasion. However, Mussolini's fall in Italy further complicated things. Through the letters that Rommel exchanged with his wife, we can glimpse his personal character and the emotional burden he carried with him. Upon his return to Germany, the general considered himself a failure, as can be inferred from his diaries and correspondence. He longed for a new challenge, and to his surprise, he was given the responsibility of defending the Normandy front in France, where a powerful invasion by the Allies was looming. After spending some time in Normandy before the famous D-Day, Rommel decides to return to Germany with his wife to celebrate his birthday. Unsuspecting of the terrible consequences that were approaching, on June 6, 1944, the Allies set foot on the shores of Normandy. The atmospheric conditions, the overconfidence of the German generals in occupied France, and Rommel's carelessness played very much in favor of the Allies. With great determination, the Allies managed to capture 5 beaches and disembark more than 130,000 men. Rommel received the news of the day at his home in Herrlingen near Ulm. He drove 700 kilometers back to his headquarters and found that the battle was already lost. Despite this, he attempted to lead the front while the Allies quickly advanced. One day, while driving his open car behind the front lines, a British Spitfire descended from the clouds and fired at the road. The driver died and the car crashed into a tree. Rommel was seriously injured and was hospitalized in France, where doctors feared for his life due to a quadruple skull fracture. He was later evacuated to another hospital in Germany, and over time he gradually recovered. But the admired general was about to fall from grace. On July 21, 1944, Erwin Rommel learns of the assassination attempt that almost took the life of Chancellor Adolf. A court-martial is convened, known as the Military Court of Honor, which included the High Military Command. False testimonies from several of those involved in the plot tried to implicate Rommel as the eventual leader of Germany in case of the attack's success. Important officers believing in that information sought to blame Rommel for the attack, and to this day, many still believe that he was one of the conspirators. Instead of subjecting Rommel to a trial in the People's Court of Germany, which would have resulted in a sentence against him, Adolf decided to offer him the opportunity to take his own life. He sent 2 officers from the German army to deliver him a letter. The officers arrived at Rommel's house and communicated the charges against him. They offered him the guarantee of a state funeral and explained that he had to take a cyanide capsule as a way of fulfilling his duty as an officer. Rommel accepts and says goodbye to his wife and son. Wearing a leather coat, he goes out to the garden. Followed by Generals Bergdorf and Meisel, Rommel hands over the house keys and his wallet to his son, indicating that he no longer needed them. Then he got into the back seat of a small car and the general settled in beside him. The car drives away and stops after a few hundred meters. The driver gets out to walk for a few minutes, and upon returning, there was General Erwin Rommel slumped in the back seat. Thus, after having served Germany all his life, this is how the legendary Field Marshal Erwin Rommel died. He had always fought cleanly, constantly seeking tactics to minimize casualties. Winston Churchill had praised Rommel as a bold and skilled opponent and a great general during the war. This was the tragic conclusion of the heroic military leader's life. Rommel had left an indelible mark on the history of World War II, recognized both for his tactical achievements and his loyalty to his country. His memory endures as one of the most outstanding commanders of the conflict, but also as a man caught in the political intrigues and difficult circumstances of his time.